What separates humans from other animals? What really makes us different? Make sure you stick around to the end because it may not be exactly what you're thinking. Maybe some of you are already thinking, what about language? Or at least written language. Surely that separates us from other animals. And this is probably true, especially when we emphasize written language, or maybe better put, symbolic language. Because did you know that some monkeys produce different alarm calls for different predators? In other words, they have a different sound for a leopard and another call for an eagle. Birds, as we all know, have incredibly complex and very sophisticated vocal systems. So I think we can all agree, animals communicate, and often in complex ways. However, this is very different from communicating through symbols and symbolic language. Sure, chimpanzees and other animals can learn to communicate through symbols, but they don't develop these systems on their own. But that is a video for another day. For now, let's just say that symbolic language probably differentiates humans from other animals. But what else? Something even more profound and, in my opinion, more fascinating sets humans apart from all other animals. So another answer people will say is culture. All those non-genetic things passed down from generation to generation. Think of music, mathematics, or the incredible buildings left by earlier civilizations. However, animals also have cultures. Chimpanzees pass down knowledge about tools. Whales communicate migration routes. Of course, passing down knowledge about tools is still a long way from, say, developing a nuclear bomb capable of wiping out all life on planet Earth. Nevertheless, other animals do have culture, even if to a lesser degree. What I'm talking about goes deeper. Can you guess? Any idea what I'm talking about? Maybe you're thinking, well, human beings are the only animals that know they will one day die. Well, maybe. However, elephants often approach, touch, and investigate dead companions and their bones. Even cats sometimes show grief-like behavioral changes after a familiar companion dies. Although neither example proves that these animals understand their own future mortality. So maybe some animals are aware of death after all. But it's what animals do, or rather do not do after this death, that truly makes humans different. Namely, all other animals do not seem to bury their dead in a ritualized manner, not like humans do. And this is what separates early human beings from even earlier versions of humans. For example, Homo heidelbergensis, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. This was an earlier human species that lived roughly 700,000 to 200,000 years ago. It was not until Homo sapiens, by around 100,000 years ago, and Neanderthals, that humans began burying their dead and placing importance on the burial site. At Kabzek Cave in Israel, Homo sapien burials about 100,000 years old included red ochre, which is a plant, and possible grave offerings. Neanderthal burials, including Shanidar Cave in Iraq, are younger. These are among the earliest widely accepted intentional burials, where they purposely buried dead bodies, although earlier deliberate body disposal has been seen earlier. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where we might argue that human beings began to develop what we call spirituality. Because a really interesting question to ask, and maybe a natural question to ask, is why humans felt such a strong need to bury their dead in a ritualized way. Did our long ago human ancestors believe in an afterlife? In today's video, the first in a multi-part series on the history of human spirituality and religious consciousness, I want to explore one major question. Can we reasonably infer that our ancient ancestors, about 100,000 years ago, believed in an afterlife or a world of spirits simply because they buried their dead? Before we continue, I want to make sure you know about the free learning companion I created for this video. If you want to understand more, remember more, and actively use the English you're hearing, not just watch and forget, click the link in the description. Inside, you'll find the complete transcript divided into clear sections with useful vocabulary, idioms, and expressions explained right beside the exact context where you heard them. You can check your understanding with an interactive quiz, notice useful grammar patterns taken directly from the video, and rebuild sentences to practice word order and natural expression. It really helped me when I was learning French, these exercises. You'll also find deeper discussion questions that help you think about the topics and use the English to express your own ideas. It's completely free, no complicated study plan required. Watch the video, explore the companion, and then watch again. You'll be surprised by how much more you understand. Just click the link below. And if objects and weapons were buried with them, does that necessarily mean our ancestors thought they would take those things into the afterlife? Because that is the problem with prehistory. It is literally before history, or in other words, before a written record of events, which in places such as Mesopotamia means the period before writing emerged, roughly 5,000 years ago, around 3400 to 3200 BCE. Without their words, we can only infer what these ancient societies were thinking from burials, pottery, images, and other objects. So it seems there is no way to really know what our ancestors really believed about an afterlife or a spirit world. It's not like we can get back into a time machine, travel back roughly 100,000 years and ask them, right? Well, not exactly, of course, but there still might be another way, and this is where things get even more fascinating. Until quite recently, some hunter-gatherer societies continued ways of life that had existed for thousands and tens of thousands of years. These included the Juhonsai San of southern Africa, the Hadza of Tanzania, and the Mbuti of the Congo Basin. Of course, no living society is an unchanged replica of people from 100,000 years ago. But before many of these traditional ways disappeared, anthropologists lived with these societies and carefully recorded their ways and beliefs. For example, sustained ethnographic work, that's what they call it, among the Juhunsi at Dobi ran from 1963 to 1996, exactly at this time when social change threatened to drastically change their ancient ways. So all of this work gives us a remarkable insight into how our ancestors may have viewed the world. And here is another amazing fact. These societies I'm talking about, these hunter-gatherer societies, they existed in different parts of the globe with no contact with one another. And yet we find the same spiritual ideas appearing again and again. This similarity in spirituality will actually become a key idea as we continue to explore the evolution of human spirituality and religion throughout this video series. But for now, let's focus on what these hunter-gatherer societies believed. These societies believed in a spirit world. They believed that everything in nature, rocks, trees, and especially animals, had a spirit. And moreover, these spirits moved through another world, a world connected to, but beyond our world. And because humans also had spirits, humans could then interact with that spirit world. So within these tribes, important figures called shamans emerged, who were believed to have a special ability to communicate with other spirits in the spirit world. And it's important to understand why these shamans wanted in the first place to interact with the spirit world. You see, it served a function, and that we will see again and again throughout the history of spirituality and religion. In other words, these shamans wanted to communicate with animal spirits because they thought it would help them with the hunt. You see, these early tribes were small societies without agriculture, so hunting was essential to their survival. They needed to succeed. So shamans became extremely important because they were believed to communicate with the spirits of the animals. If you saw Game of Thrones, you may remember some people in the north and beyond the wall who could enter the minds of animals and, in a sense, become them. This was called skin changing or warging when the animal was a wolf or a dog. And it's a similar idea. The shamans, the human shamans, communicated with an animal spirit and basically asked its permission to kill the animal during a future hunt. So even in societies where hunting was absolutely critical for survival, people hunted with sadness, or at the very least, with great respect for the animals they killed. They believed that the animal had a spirit, and they did not take its death lightly. Animals were not simply food. They stood at the center of the spiritual imagination. We can also see this in cave paintings found throughout the world, dating to at least 40,000 years ago. Famous European examples include Chauvet, about 30,000 to 32,000 years old, and Lachaud, about 17,000 years old. And the fascinating thing about these caves is that many were not easy to access. Some images were deep inside the earth, in places that required people to crawl on their hands and knees through complete darkness. And then you finally, after all this traveling through darkness and cramped space, you open up in this deep underground grotto. Also, painting under these conditions was incredibly difficult, which leads to one question. Why? Why go through all this effort when they could have just as easily chosen easier to reach walls? Some argue that it might simply have been art for art's sake. And clearly, creating these images required extraordinary skill, at least at that time. But what did they paint so deep inside these caves? Well, they painted animals. They painted hunts. And in some images, we see figures that appear to be part human and part animal. Perhaps a shaman becoming the animal being hunted. All of this has led many scholars to believe that these caves were religious, or at least deeply spiritual sites. Even the journey through the darkness may have been a part of the ritual, a way of entering a trance and communicating with the spirit world. Again, imagine crawling through the darkness, coming up in this open space deep underground. It could have awakened a sense of awe, much like maybe some people get when they enter a Catholic cathedral. To sum it all up, our earliest ancestors likely believed in a spirit world where life remained in balance. Shamans communicated with animal spirits and asked them to sacrifice themselves. Humans did not regard themselves as better or higher than other animals. In a way, they almost seemed to ask forgiveness for killing in order to survive. And they knew that one day they too would die, and that their death would help another being continue to live. And here is something important to remember as we trace the history of spirituality. Spiritual beliefs reflect the societies that hold them. These hunter-gatherer societies did not have mastery over plants. They had no domesticated animals. They saw themselves as equal to the other living organisms with which they shared the earth. And their spirituality reflected this. So, as I close this first episode in this series on the history of human spirituality, I want to consider another question. Why was it so necessary for humans to express this spirituality? Again, we see this in different tribes across the globe. The expression of these ideas is universal. Since the beginning of human society, some system of spirituality or religious thinking appears to have been fundamental. As we shall see, these systems are closely connected with controlling, or trying to control, forces that are beyond our control, but that greatly determine our survival. But all of that still leaves the deeper question: why do we express these needs in a spiritual way? Why do we imagine something beyond the world we can see? I don't necessarily have the answer, but I have my own ideas. But I'll reveal them in a later video. For now, I want to hear yours. Why does spirituality seem to be such an essential part of being human? Leave your comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me reach other videos. And please don't forget, there's the free interactive transcript. It's got a lot of great ways to deepen this knowledge, so you're not just listening to this interesting content, but actually using it to improve your English. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you next time.